Thank you. Mr. Doggett's recognized.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your testimony. I certainly agree with you that we need tax policies that encourage growth of jobs here in America. But as you know, I have a very different perspective about some of the particulars of how we get there. And I'm going to follow Mr. Teaberry's example, since there are 4 of you in 5 minutes, and ask you if you would please, to what will be narrow questions, respond with yes or no, or that you can't answer yes or no, and then if there's time I'll come back around and get you to fill in some additional testimony, and certainly welcome, as he did, you're supplementing your answers with written updates to our committee. Let me begin with you, Mr. Hayes. Is it correct that you were quoted in Bloomberg recently as saying a one-time repatriation of profits is a bad idea? My fear is that we will have a repeat of 2004. If companies repatriate these profits and spend it on things like share buybacks, they will create such negative connotations around tax reform with the public. Was that an accurate statement of your quote to them?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Rapp, do you agree with Mr. Hayes? And I think IBM took the same position.
I agree with Mr. Hayes.
Mr. Crimes, do you agree with Mr. Rapp, Mr. Hayes, and IBM?
I agree as well.
And Mr. Buteman?
I'm in agreement.
All of you agree that repatriation is a bad idea. Mr. Rapp, let me ask you about the example that would apply to any United States company that moved jobs to China. It applies to others as well, but would apply to those companies, where you say that the Chinese tax rate is 25%. Am I correct that your testimony is that if an American company pays the Chinese 25 cents on the dollar, that you think it's unfair that they should, in addition to that, have to pay 10 cents on the dollar to the United States Treasury?
Yes, I do.
And as I understand what you call a territorial system, the goal is to reduce the amount on earnings on profits in China or elsewhere abroad from 10 cents on the dollar to 0 to the United States Treasury.
Yes.
And the goal here is to have, in what you call a territorial system, a permanent exemption from all U.S. taxes on all earnings abroad, all foreign earnings. Isn't that the goal of a territorial system?
You know, I think, as we said earlier, you've got to do a benchmark of the territorial systems around the world. There is, not one territorial system, but we're looking for...
The one you're advancing would, consistent with what you just said, of going from $100 to $0 to the Treasury. The goal is to not pay taxes except where you earn the profits.
And in that example, absolutely, that we would pay the $25 there.
Mr. Crimes, do you agree that the goal should be to pay $0 to the United States Treasury on earnings that you would have in China? If you paid the Chinese tax, that it should be 0 here, that's the goal of a territorial system?
No, sir, I would not agree with that.
Okay, and Mr. Buteman, do you?
Yes, I would agree with that, and I would also add that I would love to have access to the excess capital that we have overseas.
Overseas, I understand. And then let me ask you, Mr. Rapp, you testified, especially in your written testimony, to the importance of the research and development credit, to the active financing credit, which allows for extending credit abroad to operations without recognizing any earnings immediately from extending that credit. Are you saying that if the corporate tax rate were reduced, the statutory rate were reduced to the mid-20s, that you would be willing to forego both of those?
As I said, if you get us to a statutory rate which includes states that puts us competitive globally, everything's on the table.
And that would be in, several of you have talked about what that rate is, but that's somewhere around 25%?
Including state.
Including state taxes
right.
as well. So the federal rate you would be looking for is below 25%.
Right.
But if you got it below 25%, you would be willing, consistent with the testimony here about the need for simplification and the problems of having a 19,000-page tax return,
yep.
To eliminate the research and development credit. In fact, there are a long list of corporate deductions and exceptions and provisions that perhaps some of the team behind you have been successful in getting into our tax code in the past, and for a flat rate of in the 20s, you would be willing to forego all of those.
What we've said, and I said it in my comment up front, what we're looking for is a level playing field. So what I want is a territorial system that lines up with the countries that we compete with around the world.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Time's